My name is Penka Kouneva. I'm a composer and orchestrator based in Los Angeles. I orchestrated for Steve Jablonsky, the Transformers composer, since 2004. And he hired me because of my classical background and also because of my experience in Hollywood. And he composed the music for the Transformers game in 2007. And then he needed an additional composer for his team to score the game Transformers, and I was a natural choice because I knew the music really well. This was my break. This was my first composing assignment in video games. And again, I got the job because I knew the score, the music, the style really well. And it was an opportunity. He just needed help. My first composing experience was incredible. I was just happy, and I got to do action music and a couple of big action loops and chases. And I suddenly felt like this was the perfect match, what the game needed and what my skills were. And I felt happy and excited. I just distinctly remember that happiness of working on a game, and the rest is history. I took the time to learn as much as I could, and knowing fantasy, knowing science fiction, not exactly having played a lot of games, but I now have played tons of games. But my experience just being a media composer and being passionate about storytelling and visuals, and the whole fantasy, sci-fi, horror genre made it possible for me to become a game composer. The similarities between scoring for film and scoring for games are in that we have to always compose powerful themes, themes that define a character or a situation or create a world that the game will inhabit. So that thematic, dramatic composing is very important in both. Technically, on another hand, games are very different from scoring in a way that we have to be aware of the function, what the music is doing, whether it's a level theme or loop, or whether it's exploration or combat or suspense. And there's also technical rigor in delivering the music in video games that's only specific to game scoring and really is not the same in any other genre. For instance, the game loops have to be of certain length. It also has to do with just the pure technical specs, how much memory there is on the game. Especially if we're scoring casual games or online games, it's all streaming, it's all part of memory, so we have to be aware and not to exceed the technical specs. So my first game experiences were all about learning the technical complexities and really understanding how the music will be implemented. I myself don't implement the music, but I'm always talking to the people who are implementing it, even before I would compose the first note, because it's important for me to know how the music will be implemented. And that's part of the whole process. Usually, I'm given very specific guidelines, and then we go through a process of revisions and iterations. So I usually get a lot of instructions and a clear instructions how the music will be implemented. So then it's my job to follow, basically to go through a couple of rounds of iterations, revisions, and understand exactly what is that they need. So it's a very collaborative, kind of very open flowing process where there's feedback going on every day. And as a composer, my job is to implement the feedback and be on top of the technical requirements. I'm really passionate about the orchestra, and I've always been since childhood really passionate. So it's a great honor, and I think I'm one of the few people who has a viable career both as an orchestrator and also as a composer, and I love it. It's just wonderful. Working as an orchestrator, I'm the support team. I'm the person who takes the composer's idea and MIDI files and audio files, and it's my job to arrange the music for a large orchestra and also be very aware of how the music is going to be performed during the session, and create music that is clear and speaks of the intention of the composer. So it's a different process. It's not exactly creative, but it's more like translating the vision of the composer for the orchestra. So that's my job as an orchestrator. As a composer, my job is to collaborate with game developers and be that creative voice supporting their vision with my music. So it's a different process. I love and enjoy both, being supportive of other composers and being supportive of the game developers. I usually lead the recording sessions, which is a lot of fun and also kind of a high pressure job. And my job is to shape the interpretation of the musicians and also be really open about the style. Like we recently recorded a horror game and I had to be really specific about the sound and the tone and the intensity. So it's again my job to explain this is the genre, this is our expectations, that's the style of the game. Think, for instance, modern music, or think. So again, it's my job to help the musicians understand what they're playing, because then they give us their all. They give us wonderful performances, and ultimately the soundtrack is amazing. I was born and raised in Sofia, Bulgaria. I was 23 when I left Bulgaria. It was 1990. I'm 47 now. So in Bulgaria, I went to a conservatory, and we studied folklore and ethnomusicology. So I've always been really passionate about non-Western music. And obviously, when I came to America, and specifically when I came to Hollywood, I felt intuitively that I had to draw on that background for me to be able to develop a voice as a composer, and to be able to stand out in the most competitive field in the world, which is media composing. Nobody really taught me that. I just intuitively felt, as an artist, I had to have a voice. I had to have a unique attitude, unique perspective. What is it about my music that makes it valuable for everybody? And I believe that multicultural background, being born in Bulgaria and now fully integrated in America, is truly unique, and it's a benefit. It's wonderful. So I'd say yes, definitely draw much on my Bulgarian influences, and it has helped me write music that is my own. I have to say I'm extremely grateful to be working in games today, because yes, the budgets are amazing, but also I should say that there is the entire range of anything from really small budget games to lavish budgets. And I've had the honor to work on everything from really small games to really big games, but it's the orchestral recording that we can afford on the larger budget games that's really attractive to me, because I feel, again, my skills are utilized to their best. And I would say each game has to be approached in a unique way. And the most important question, first and foremost, is what is the need? What are the needs of the game? What's the style? What's the genre? What is the vision that the game makers have? And then the question becomes, how is the music going to support that vision? So all the decisions are made with these questions in mind. How do we support the vision of the game makers? In the same way we ask when we score films, how do we support the vision of this? Because it's all about storytelling. And in games, it's storytelling and gaming and mechanics of the gameplay. But these are the questions that then inform how many musicians we're going to hire, what type of orchestra. Maybe we'll have a choir, maybe not. And then we have to work with the budget and make it possible. Both albums were created with a singular purpose for me to grow as a game composer. I felt like I wanted to show something. I wanted to show how passionate I am about growing as a game composer. And I also wanted to learn new skills. So they purely had the purpose of growth, artistic growth for me. And I'm really happy. The first album led to more jobs and wonderful new friendships and collaborative relationships. And the second album is just about ready to be recorded. We have a session in 3 weeks. And again, it's cinematic music, which essentially means like a conceptual idea that inspired the piece. And I think very conceptually, I think very cinematically. But then it's also practical. With each piece, I set a specific assignment for myself, like to learn a sound or a genre, or maybe try something I haven't tried before. This was another big, important point, to always stretch and try things I haven't tried before, because I didn't have a job to, compose this kind of music. So yeah, I'm happy. These are 2 personal growth projects that I created, and they led to amazing things. I love working for Blizzard. It's one of my greatest joys. That's when my profession becomes the source of joy. I work with an extremely talented composer, Neil Acree, who is the composer of all the cinematics. He's not an in-house Blizzard composer. He's a contract composer. And we've worked together for 6 years now. No, I'm sorry, for 8 years. And I'm very biased. I think all 3 of them, the 3 titles, Diablo, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft, are incredible musical adventures. I want to say World of Warcraft because the music is so imaginative, but all the scores are just incredible. I would say, with a hand in my heart, that Blizzard's music today rivals the best of modern music, cinematic, film. It's just so inspired. It embraces the history of music. It embraces the orchestral history. and embraces the modern music, the technology and rock and guitars, and creates this cutting edge, amazing sound. And I'm incredibly honored and happy to be working for Blizzard, and it's like the most professionally rewarding experience for me. I just wanted to say the most burning question I get from young composers is, how do you get your first break? And I wanted again to express how grateful I am for the Transformers, because this was my break. And for anybody coming and working on their first game, being a AAA game, it's just an amazing luck. But again, because I knew the style of the films I was asked to compose, and we were not allowed to use any of the themes from the film because they're copywritten by the film. So it had to be very much in that style, but it had to be original music. And Steve Jablonski, to whom I owe this opportunity, composed the theme and a couple of the high combat loops. And then my job was to do a couple of big combat loops and races, chases, a bunch of cinematics, and again, keep the style very unified. So the game has a sound. That's the most important thing, that the music creates a sonic world that these characters and the story will inhabit. But again, I got the job because I knew the sound of the Transformers. I would say this is just one thing. I'm grateful for the experience. I came to Hollywood with practically no money and one connection, so I had to work a lot. And in that process of working a lot, I learned a lot. And that's not something you can learn from textbooks. It's just a pure, just being there on the line of fire, making choices in scoring session, in orchestrating, planning really well, always spending other people's money on sessions, always being really aware of how this money is going to go. But the basic philosophy has always been, we have this little budget, let's see how we can do our very best. It's just a kind of fundamental philosophy of being efficient, being creative, and spending other people's money most efficiently. I would say collaborating is one of the most important skills that any composer can develop, because we all work in a highly collaborative field. We get continuously feedback from our clients. We pass notes or instructions to our team members, and I have a large team that I work with on these large jobs. And one of the most important skills that I've learned along the way for the last 15 years is to work well with people. And I think anybody who has aspirations to become a collaborative composer, game composer, they have to be good collaborators. Anybody who is a media composer today needs to have 4 skill sets, really well-developed skill sets, and that is the creative voice, being a composer, being a good collaborator, having an incredible technical fluency, and I'll come back to this, and the 4th skill set is being an entrepreneur, being kind of self-driven, because we all build our businesses. So as far as technology is concerned, I finished the conservatory. I was always trained as a musician, composer, and one of the biggest challenges in my Hollywood career has been learning technical skills. My solution for all these years has been to reach out and surround myself with most amazing people, recording engineers. I work with John Rod, who is a brilliant recording engineer, and reach out for help. The moment when I felt that my own technical skills will simply not cut it, I worked with another music producer, Chris Lord, who mixed these Transformers loops and 150 audio tracks. So again, that was my solution, but it's an ongoing process to always learn as much as I can about technology, to be really aware, to always ask questions, and just be aware that game scoring is a highly demanding technologically, and we have to be on top of it. As far as I have been able to observe, I think having a role model is really important, because it's difficult for young women to be in a profession where there's historically no women, or so few women composers. And in Hollywood, historically, there's just so few women here and far between. So I think one of the reasons is just not having role models. The other reason, and I think it's even more important, is we grow through opportunities. I mentioned earlier that because I came with no money to Hollywood, I had to work a lot. I just worked in television, on film, on independent films for composers in the capacity of their orchestrator. And in that process of working so much, I learned a lot. And I was challenged, and of course I made mistakes, and I had mentors. So having opportunities to grow is really important. and also having opportunities where you're challenged, where you're pushed out of your comfort zone and you're forced to learn new skills. But then the other factor is having mentors. I've been incredibly blessed. I've had amazing mentors. I'm still working with mentors in my 16th year of this career. And just having the opportunity to reach out for advice. I've always been also really kind of reaching out, asking people. I'm not afraid to ask questions and ask for help and acknowledge when I have limitations. I'm not afraid to say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this, please help me. And having mentors, having opportunities to learn has helped me. I was oblivious to the fact that I'm a woman. I chose this profession. I've always been really passionate about composing and orchestra and happy to have this career. So I was oblivious. It's hard. It's hard to be the only woman, but it's okay. It's been 15 years of ongoing struggle and learning every day, and embracing the whole notion that we're media composers, we get notes, we get feedback, we're asked to change things, revise things, it's part of the job. And I would encourage women to pursue it, to consider it as a career, and I think it's getting a little bit easier. I hope it gets better in the decades to come, and it's a tremendous honor for me to be doing this at this point in time.